trusted platform is finally here. Tellsomeone. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next episode of Tellsomeone podcast. You know what we do? We tell it better than the rest. Today we are joined by a very special guest from my hometown, Vleefontein. I'm talking about a man who has been very vocal in various social media platforms about a very thorny topic of men's mental health. This is a topic that when you raise it, you see men frowning in their faces. Introduce yourself, my brother.
How are you?
I'm very good.
I'm good.
Yes.
Yeah. How do I introduce myself? You know, I'm quite multi. You know,
Yeah.
But yeah, my name is KABELO. You know, and everybody that grew up with me knows me as KABELO. But otherwise, I'm known as Rendani. You know, I'm just a regular guy who has a passion to help people, particularly men. You know, but that's basically who I am. What do you want to know?
Yeah, you are multiracial school kids. You know, take us through that.
Man, I can't say I'm a multiracial school kid. Come on, you know, I grew up right here. I went to our local Munjezi Primary School until I was in grade 4. Then I left for Emmanuel Christian School, did my primary and high school there, and after that I studied systems engineering. I'm currently working not as an engineer but as a technician, you know, for a telecommunication company in South Africa. But yeah, I mean, I've got other passions after that, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe before we deal with those patients, I want to understand this thing that is always being said, that these Christian schools have they play a pivotal role in kids' religious conviction. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
they force you to be Christians.
Well, but okay, maybe the word force is a bit excessive, but yeah, we can say that, you know, because remember, as a Christian school, as a parent taking your child to a Christian school, you must somehow know that they are going to enforce Christianity on them.
Absolutely.
But it's unfair on the child because the child doesn't get to choose. You know, I can't say Christianity was forced on me, but it's all I knew. You know.
Is there anyone at school who ever tried to say, no, I'm not going to do this? This is not me.
Well, Muslims. We had Muslims in my school.
And how did that function? Muslims?
I honestly, when I think about it now, I'm like, I don't understand. Maybe it was the education part that was important, because it doesn't make sense that you take your Muslim child into a Christian school. But it's actually
very confusing, if you ask me.
It wasn't that bad. Come on.
It's what dear Mekar. It's just cool. But look, man. Apart from you went to Emmanuel, you went to varsity, you started to be an engineer. Now you are a technician.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. No, I'm asking this because these topics that you are involved in, they are very far from engineering, but it's a story for another.
It is actually, yeah.
I'm seeing you advertising on Facebook about foundation. There are 2 foundations that you are involved in.
Yeah.
Take us through those foundations. What are they doing, and stuff like that.
Well, I'm part of. I'm a director of the Laura M Foundation.
Okay.
You know? There's a lady called Laura Makafula. She is the chairperson of the foundation, and you know, it's solely based on men's mental health. You know, helping young boys and men, you know, with their mental health issues, or people don't like the word issues, but challenges that they have. You know, we have in the foundation, we've got all different sorts of people, you know, professionals. We've got doctors, medical doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got, you know, sangomas, you know, for those who want traditional assistance. We've got pastors and also life coaches. You know, I'm part of the life coaching team.
Oh, okay.
You know, in the Lot of M Foundation, and I also am involved in a foundation that I recently joined, which is called the Hope of Hopeless. That is more focused on street people, especially street men and boys. You know, taking them out of the street, and also substance abuse. You know, within that environment. So we are trying to pull them out of the streets to, you know, to really help them, you know, because most of them really are going through a lot. For them to be there, everybody has a story. So our intention is to help them get to a better space within themselves. Yeah.
And you have a podcast as well. I'm told, in fact, you are you are the first person in this community.
Bona, you need to tell people that this podcast was my idea. So, you need to start telling people that, you know what, I'm the one who came up with this podcast. I deserve shares. I deserve shares in the podcast. You guys heard it, right? You deserve shares. Yeah.
I remember you started this podcast in 2020.
Yeah, 2020, yeah. During the whole pandemic, level 5.
When we were training, you kept mentioning about, and by then we never knew what is. We were still no. Kabelo is now coming up with stories. This one likes playing. He's telling us about a podcast. What is a podcast? And what is it all about?
My podcast is I think based solely on spirituality. You know, like I always say to people that, you know, you cannot separate spirituality from mental health. You know, they're not one and the same thing, but they go hand in hand. You know, I've come to understand that it is my breakthrough in my spirituality, in my spiritual understanding, that has really helped me mentally with the challenges that I've had. But really, it's called Remembrance. The podcast is called Remembrance. It's found in various podcast platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, you know, Google Podcast, anywhere that you will find podcasts. If you just type Remembrance, you will get the podcast. But it's more focused on spirituality. You know, I don't speak too much about mental health in it, but I believe that if you can get the training from the podcast and come and listen to me speak about, you know, the mental health issues, you will understand how they merge and come together. But that's what that's what I'm doing.
You seem to have created yourself I think, what can I say, maybe a fan base on Twitter.
Yes.
Speaking about this thorny issue.
The thorny issue.
It's a very thorny topic. It's not something that people are prepared to talk about. In fact, if you can start engaging a male on this issue, chances are you're just going to be brushed off very quickly.
Usually, yeah.
If you even raise it in beer halls and stuff like that, we want to talk about women, sex and alcohol. You want to tell us that we're mad. You know, people will say, no, Kabelo, things are mad. It's wrong. So I want you, what exactly is this mental health? By mental health, what are you talking about?
Well, mental health, I mean, it's a big topic. Let me just say that, you know, because under it falls so many different, you know, disorders. You know, depression, for example, is depression. I'm just going to say maybe the top 4 that I know. You know, is depression, anxiety disorder. We have PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And then we also have bipolar disorder. You know, all these are leading, you know, in all the countries in the world. But depression, you know, is leading in our country, and especially amongst men. Depression is the leading one,
Oh, okay. So these things that you have been explaining are the different types of
mental health challenges or issues, yes.
Or issues. But what really causes
You know, it varies from person to person, to be honest with you. You know, but and in more than anything with men, you know, because that's where I want to focus more on. Because my intention has always been to help young boys and men. You know, and I think even women that are listening, if you're a woman listening in, you know, you can listen in for the sake of your cousin, for the sake of your son, for the sake of, you know, your boyfriend, your husband, because if you understand the psyche of the men that are around you, it's easier for you to reach out and understand certain situations. So for me, when it comes to depression itself, I mean, mental health itself. You know, it varies from from person to person, depending on what it is that they're going through in their lives. Some it's medical, some is just purely, you know, mental. So, but we will break those down in a minute.
Yeah. No, I want you to break down, you know, because this topic, to be honest with you, it's something that has been widely ignored, but yet very important.
Yes.
So I want you to break down the different types, the symptoms, and stuff like that. I want to hear depression. I want to hear, you know, all these things. Bipolar. I've heard of bipolar. It's a famous one. Una bipolar.
And most people don't even know what that is.
I wanted to say that. KABELO. Una bipolar.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know. Break these things down for us.
No, firstly, I mean, I think before I even go into breaking them down, you know, it's understanding, you know, just how severe or just how important this topic is. You know, if you've ever been on my Twitter space, we say this every single week, that South Africa, you know, is number 2 in the world when it comes to suicide stats.
Sure.
Suicide stat. There are more men, you know, who kill themselves in this country than women, and in any country really, but number 2 in the world, that's an alarming number.
It's very alarming.
So basically we are dealing with a pandemic. We are dealing with a mental pandemic amongst men, and I think the only way that really we can try to eradicate it, the first step is to have understanding about what this thing is. You know, most men that are out there, you know, they're living with a mental disorder, but most of them don't even know that they're living with a mental disorder because they have deemed it normal. Whatever it is, that maybe if it's aggression, whatever the case, you know, they've deemed that to be a part of their character, that they saw, I'm just like this, so they think that it's part of who they are. But in truth, these are men that are going through a lot of things out there. So we need to talk about these things, you know. And this is something that I always say as well, men are taught not to speak. You know, we are not allowed to speak. Black men particularly, you know, they are told that, you know, you don't cry. Black men don't, shut up, suck it up, you know, as you're growing up, you know. What type of men are you? And then we are taught that it's wrong to cry. We are taught it's wrong to have emotions. We are taught it's wrong, you know, to feel, as if we're not human, you know. But in truth, these men are crying sometimes in their sleep. Some of them are taking out the frustration on women. This is why we see gender-based violence, you know, as rapidly as it is. It's because men, you know, they are trying to find ways to deal with what's happening on the inside. We are not saying that's an excuse. Please, people, I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I'm trying to point out to some of the reasons why some of these things are happening. There are organizations out there that are built solely to encourage and to motivate women, to empower women, but none of them, you know, there's not a lot of organizations out there to empower men, but yet we are saying that we have got a male issue in our country. So the only way to do it for me is to have this type of conversations, to have people, you know, talk about these things on podcasts, on YouTube and in various social media platforms, is for us to really start to have the dialogue. So yeah, so that's basically, you know, the reason why I do what I do. Part of the reason why I do what I do.
Yeah, but I want you to explain this popular one.
Yes.
The bipolar one. I'm interested in the bipolar one. You know, when I was giving you a call, to say let's do a podcast on this area.
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about bipolar. I'm sure they also want to know about bipolar, so that they must not stop using it in a misguided way. They must.
Yeah. I mean, bipolar is usually it's basically a chemical imbalance. That occurs. And it's sometimes basically people, when they say someone is bipolar, is when somebody shifts moods.
Yes.
Like when one moment you are happy and the next you are just sad and almost depressed looking, and all these things. So, when it's another word for that, for bipolar, or the previous word before it was called manic depression. Manic depression. So this before people came up with this bipolar disorder word, and generally this bipolar is generally within the age of 15 to 24. That age group is the one that really suffers more from bipolar disorder. Not to say that older people don't. And I've also, in my research, I've found out that with men, it's very difficult to detect bipolar disorder. Simply because of the very reason I was talking about, that men are masters at masking what's really happening. So it's not very easy to detect, because generally some guys are just quiet. So now when they become quiet or have those type of bipolar symptoms, you can't detect them, because already we are conditioned to hide and mask so many things that we are going through in our life. So part of the symptoms of bipolar disorder is someone who's overconfident. People like, okay, I'm very confident.
I wanted to say that.
I'm very confident. I don't have bipolar disorder.
I wanted to raise that statement.
I don't have that. And also, being socially withdrawn. When somebody is amongst people, he just wants to be there, he wants to, and sometimes it's not even a physical withdrawal. Sometimes it's just, just being withdrawn within a crowd, where we are talking and then you're just by there, you're just within your thoughts. That's also a part of the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Reckless behavior, they just become reckless, So so reckless behavior is part of the symptoms of bipolar disorder. But the leading one, like I said, depression.
So it's depression. So depression and suicide is one and the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Or depression leads to suicide.
Yeah, depression is the lead.
Okay.
Is a lead disorder that leads to depression, to suicide. Sorry. So because let me tell you how suicide works. I don't know if, I can explain this.
Yeah.
Part of my book, I wrote a book, but it's not out. So don't ask me about it yet. One of the things that I wrote is that I liken mentality with a box. With a box. At the age of 15, 13, 14, 15, at teenage years, we build ourselves this mental box, as men, and we shove ourselves in there. I just wanted to get what happens when somebody ends up killing themselves. We shove ourselves in there, and then we bring our toys. Your toys could be violence. Your toys could be sex. Your toys could be alcohol. You bring those toys, and because you want to be entertained in your little box. But what you don't realize is that as you grow physically older, the box remains the same. And then the toys become different, and you bring more toys. Now you're bringing other things inside, the pornography, addiction, drugs, and within that box, that's when now you are growing, but the box stays the same.
Very interesting.
And when you're going into that box, with the toys, and the box is remaining the same, and you're growing, what happens is that when you get to a space where now, let's say somebody kills himself over a woman, people will be like, over a woman. It is not over the woman. because there were so many things that were in his box that has been putting in there, and he grew so far beyond the boxing that he had that now it's the woman that drives him over the edge, or it's the job loss that drives him over the edge. People don't understand what happens when a person gets to a space of suicide. I don't know if maybe I can just tell you my little testimony.
Yeah, no.
You know,
I'm 100% interested.
Yeah, you know, in 2009, I'm 35 now, so I was much younger back then. You know, I went through, I was diagnosed rather with severe depression. You know, and at the time I didn't know what depression was. You know, as a young person, as a young black person, what do you know about depression really? You know, and I was diagnosed with severe depression, and it was the most horrible time of my life. You know, every waking moment of my life, I was thinking about how I'm killing myself, ways I can kill myself. You know, I would be, you know, having panic attacks. You know, during the day, I would be, you know, anxious, and I got to a point where I lost the will to live. You know, and by that I mean you lose hope. If you lose hope as a human being, you are dead. You know, so I got to a point where I became hopeless. There was nothing hopeful about anything. The world became different. I saw the world differently. To cut this long story short, one day I decided, you know what, today's the day. I am going to kill myself. I am tired of feeling how I'm feeling. I'm tired of everything that's happening in here. Day in and day out, I was unable to eat. I wouldn't be able to eat. I had lost weight. I remember at the time I was size 24. You know, by the time I was really in the depth of my depression. And you know, I decided I'm going to do it. I know where my dad's gun is. I stole the key to the safe. When he left, I said I'm going to do it. But something in me was like, you know what, just move, go to your friend and say bye. You know, go to your friend and talk to your friend. You know, for me, it was that last bye moment, because he was the only person that at the time was around. You know, our friend Mr. Smith, you know, he can attest to this. Go to his house, get there, you know, with the intention to only say goodbye. You know, and for me, I remember he saw something in me and he's like, are you okay? And when he said that, I just sobbed, went into tears now. So because he was young at the time, you know, he didn't know what to do with this, just like many other men out there. Even as you, as an older man, if I start crying, you won't even know what you touch me, what do you do, you know?
It will be very strange.
Yeah, it will be very strange because it's very foreign for men to see other men cry, you know, and I'm busy crying there, I'm unable to say what's wrong. Then as that is happening, we hear a knock on the door. You know, at the time, his brother was staying in Polokwane, and he had just been passing by to say hi to his mother. So then, as he's here, as he walked in, Mr. Smith was like, you know what, I don't know what to do with this guy. Please assist me. I don't know what to do with this guy. You know, and then that's when I had a conversation with him, and it is that conversation that saved my life. It is that conversation that saved my life. So now when I look back at, you know, the events and why I felt that I needed to off myself, I laugh at myself, you know, not at the depression itself, but at why. Because now when you gain understanding, when you gain knowledge about these things, you know, you realize that the thing that you thought was the biggest thing in your mind actually wasn't that big. You know, and it's unfortunate that many people out there are committing suicide, you know, because every time I hear that somebody committed suicide, it breaks my heart, because I know that it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented by just having a conversation, by just seeking help. You know, men, we need to get to a space where we don't shy away from seeking help, from saying, you know what, I'm not okay, because your pride. Trust me, your pride is not worth it. Your ego is not worth it. You know, some of you are depressed and thinking of suicide, and you have kids. You have family members. I believe to some level, and please don't get me wrong, to some level, it's an act of selfishness,
Yeah.
because you are gonna go,
Yes, yes.
but there are so many other people out there who will be affected by your decision. Don't make a permanent decision over a temporal situation.
I'm definitely learning a lot here. Oh, I know this is free education. When comrades are busy in varsity fighting for free education, I now get what they're trying to do. Because this is free schooling.
I need payment. He's gonna pay me. So yeah, but yeah, man. I think another thing that I felt, Anyway, it's fine. Let me not go into too much detail about depression.
So we've dealt with bipolar. We've dealt with depression.
Yes.
What else?
PTSD.
What is that?
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Usually that is found with people who go to war. War veterans. Because of the trauma that they endure. When they are at war, when they come back home. That's why it's called post-traumatic. It's after the event. They endure so much trauma, and then now that when they are home, some of them begin to just have very, very weird characters and mental health issues because of what happened to them at war. Usually that's how it's defined, but in truth, there are men who have been raped. There are men who are raped at a very young age. I'm speaking to men right now who have been raped maybe by an uncle, by a father, sometimes even by women at a very young age. And when they grow older, they think that they have dealt with it. But when they grow older, it catches up with them. We see traits of the trauma that they got. That can be part of post-traumatic stress disorder. There are people who have witnessed a death. Witnessing a death, for a human being to witness a death, it's not natural. That can traumatize you. To be in an abusive home where you have an abusive mother or abusive father or an abusive environment, that can cause a lot of stress. So that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Men are going through it today. I've seen it on Twitter Spaces every single Tuesday, almost every single Tuesday. We find men who come and say, "I was raped." There are men that that were raped. There are men that that have endured so much trauma at home that you don't know that these things are happening because what? We are told to seal our lips as men, to die from within, So as men, we end up hating one another for things that we don't understand. When you gain understanding, you have empathy. You will have sympathy because you have gained understanding. If I'm your friend and I'm always aggressive, and you always didn't like my aggressive nature, the day I tell you why I'm aggressive is the day you begin to understand why I do what I do. That's when empathy comes in. That's when you feel the need to help. So people, you need to get to a space where seek for help. No matter what, love yourself enough to put your pride aside. Love yourself enough to put your ego aside. Because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's not serving you as a person. It's not going to serve you. So if something is not serving you, let go of that thing and go towards what does serve you.
So let's say, for instance, I want to understand the PTSD. Maybe, for example, I was involved in a car accident or something like that. And maybe I witnessed a lot of things and then stuff like that. So that counts as PTSD.
Yes. Yeah. Any form of trauma. If you were traumatized at any point in your life, and that trauma now starts to leak into your future, leak into the now. That's what we're dealing with when we talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, it's a big. There's many subtitles. Topics under PTSD. But I'm just more than anything speaking about this because I know that most people that will be listening in will relate with the examples that I made. is because I see it every Tuesday. Sometimes a bad marriage where now you were abused, whether that be mentally or physically in a marriage, you know, that can cause trauma, and the trauma you find out now in your next relationship, you know, all the trauma is coming into this relationship. Now you can't deal with certain things. Now you can't think properly about certain things because you don't even know that you are dealing with a disorder. So it's about learning about these disorders that I believe is the answer, is the key. Understanding is powerful.
I want you to this is very interesting. You're unpacking very well. I want you to explain, to clarify this thing of racializing the concept of mental health. because black people is something that is mostly common to black people, or is it something that black people don't want to deal with it? They think it's a white thing and stuff like that. I want you to just clarify me there.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember, it's all about culture. You know, where do we come from? What is the teaching? What is the conditioning or the domestication? Domestication, I'm talking about what you have been taught as you grew up. See, in the black culture, they do think it's a white thing. They think that seeking help from a psychologist is a white thing. Black people don't go to psychologists. I mean, how do you go to a black... I mean, waste money. Take my 1.5 and go for an hour. Really? You know? And it's a conditioning. It's a dysfunctional conditioning that we have. And we need to get to a space where that is no longer the conditioning. Our kids, your son, your nephews, they are depending on you to teach them what works. Because already we know what doesn't work. So we need to be in a space where we are now actively saying, you know what, I'm not just gonna chill and pretend like, you know, we need to just go on with how things were going. It is our responsibility, it's your responsibility as a man, you know, to push towards educating not only yourself, and not only for yourself. When you educate yourself so that you can be able to educate the ones that are coming after you. The next generation needs to have a better chance of living and a better chance of understanding these things than we did. We can't just stay in one place because, well, that's how things are done. So it is a mentality that black people have, but yet depression goes across any... It's a human thing. It's a human pandemic. But in the black culture, it's less seen as a problem because we're conditioned that way.
Yo, are you listening, men? Men, are you listening? Okay. Speaking of men, I want to understand, how do you deal with this thing of male pride when you're busy dealing with the topic? How do you... Because I know my brothers can be very problematic.
Yeah, it's true.
How when that thing comes up, how do you quickly squash its head?
With men, when I do a coaching session, you know, with a man who says, "What I'm dealing with this," obviously it's different for different people. But I was saying this yesterday actually to somebody, and I was like, you know what? When a man doesn't open up, sometimes. In my methods are quite harsh sometimes, you know, and then that's for anybody that ever wants to deal with me, you know, have me coach them. Sometimes with the men, you need to break them into pieces, because remember, if I'm reaching my hand to you and you're not coming back to take it, then I need to break you to a point where you will have to reach for it, you know, and that's the method I don't like. I break you down to a point where you actually need my help in this moment, you know, and that's a harsh method, by the way, but it's a very powerful and effective one. But at the same time, you know, there are people who are willing, you know, so I will really just make you comfortable. That's the first thing. The person has to make the I can say victim, but the person that's dealing with I as a coach, I have to make you comfortable, you know, so that you can be able to open up to me. And how I do that is me opening up about me. See, when I open up, I give you permission to do the same. But if I'm going to close myself off trying to get you to open up, then that's a problem for most men. So sometimes it requires, that's what I'm saying, it depends on the kind of situation I'm dealing with. I've dealt with people that, there was a young man who said to me that, you know, my wife left my bed today, went to another province. When I got to that province, 2 days later, she was getting married. That's trauma.
Yeah, I know that's trauma.
That's trauma. You know, I've heard so many different stories. The stories that will blow your mind. You'll be like, how is that possible? You know, we were fine, but yet a few days later, you know, she's getting married to another person. That's trauma. So he was saying, you know, I just want to kill myself. The humiliation, my ego, my pride, you know, and also what I've tried to build, because I remember he said, you know, he had built a house, he bought a car, you know, all these things under her name. So can you, I'm just giving you an example. There's that, and there's someone who says I was raped, and there's someone who says that, you know, I've got a problem with black tax, you know, black tax, being at home, being the breadwinner and whatnot. I don't have enough. So many different situations require different types of methods.
KB, aka Randy, is here, ladies and gentlemen. You seem to be centering your discussion around the need to have discussions,
yes,
as opposed to finding a cure, like, you know, seek medical attention and stuff like that. You are, I don't know if I'm getting you right, you are of the idea or of the view that people must open up, and that will be the best cure.
It's not the best cure, because sometimes you do need medical attention.
Okay.
You know, there's some situations where just talking to me won't help. That you need certain medication to give the balance, you know, to your emotions or to your mental stability. So I'm an advocate of medical assistance. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that the first key, you know, to go in, you know, is to have conversations. The conversation that you and me are having right now is not the same type of conversation that I will be having with somebody that I'm dealing with, who's dealing with depression or whatever the case may be. You and me have opened a dialogue so that other people can start discussing this thing, so that another person can have what I call an internal dialogue. Talking to yourself within, you know, it's not just supposed to be talking to yourself about issues that are going on in your life. You know, have internal dialogues, because those are the most powerful ones. What are you saying about yourself? You know, who are you saying that you are as you are by yourself? The dialogue has to go on here first, and then we move into having dialogues with other people. So I'm an advocate of conversation. I'm an advocate of opening dialogues, because it's through these dialogues that people will realize and get to know themselves. Remember, your experience of a thing is based on how you perceive it. It's always based on how you perceive it, because if our experiences were supposed to be the same, it means that whenever I go through the same thing, I will experience it exactly the way you did. But it's about perception. How do you see the situation? And then that perception will give you the experience. When a woman is, let's say your wife has cheated on you, how you view that, you can decide how you view that, and your view will be then birthing the experience that you will have. It is not anybody else's responsibility to choose how they think about a situation and how they experience a situation. You yourself have the power to say, and this is something I always say that life has no meaning except the meaning that I give it. Every situation, you know, I have to give meaning to every. How a situation comes to my life, I have to be like, okay, what does this mean? Then I give it the meaning. Yeah. What do I want to experience here? Then I give it the experience. You and everybody else on the planet, you are basically choosing every experience that you have, because sometimes you do it automatically, but honestly, there is no meaning to life except the meaning that you as an individual give it.
Yo, I know this is interesting. Yo, the Tell Someone podcast is on fire today. Yeah, Mari Bizani Fire Brigade. We are sha. Yeah, we need sessions. We need seminars. We know you are very active on the social media space.
Yeah.
But we need sessions. We need. I'm sure someone is sitting there, is touched. They are not on Facebook. They are not on Twitter. I mean, I know for a fact that I only started Twitter this year. In fact, it was only after having a podcast that I started Twitter. So, are there any plans to?
Yeah, I mean, within the Laura M Foundation, you know, Laura, which is the chairperson, she's already doing amazing work with people in jail, you know, and some of the prisons in Gauteng, you know, and I mean, she goes to also schools, you know, and empowers young boys and gives them, you know, because the foundation gives, you know, packages, you know, that have small gifts for young boys, just really to encourage them as well. More than anything, we just want the boys to really find themselves at a younger age, to eradicate or to help them to unlearn some of the bad or the dysfunctional things that they have learned before. So there is that, and in Polokwane as well, I'm working on something, you know, trying to like a men's conference of sorts, you know, because I want to engage live with men, some of our fathers. You know, they are also suffering. People don't realize this, but your father could be suffering from a very, very, you know, serious mental health challenge. But because they are so old school, you know, indoda ikali, indoda must, you know, and that's the mentality that they have. It's very difficult to break that away from them because that's instilled deep inside of themselves. So, but with that, I want to invite also, you know, because right now with the Hope of Hopeless, we are planning to do a picnic or a camp, so to speak, fathers and sons, you know, to build relationships between fathers and sons. And by the way, one of the things that I and this is the point I almost forgot, fatherlessness is the number one leading cause of a lot of men's mental health. You know, some of you don't have fathers because of death. Some of you don't have fathers because, you know, they left. And some of you have fathers in the house who are not present. And I think for the latter one, which is having a father in the house not present, it's more painful.
Yes.
Because, you see, if your father is passed on, you know why you don't have a father. If your father has left and to another person, or they've got a divorce, whatever the case, you know why you don't have a father. But imagining being in a house with a man that you can't reach, a man that only dictates, a man that only provides, you know. Some people will think that's a better off way. No. Very, very, very powerful and very, very impactful in the men. So most of the time when I'm speaking to men, I always ask the question, where is your father? There's so many boys and men who do not have fathers. The father is supposed to be a prophet to the son who tells you what's to come because he's been there.
Yes.
But there are no prophets. These sons are on autopilot, you know, learning things from friends, learning things from social media. But all they need is that, you know. This is why even with women, you know, they say that, you know, with women marry their fathers, and those that don't have always marry their sugar daddies, you know. It's because there's a role that fathers play in the house that can't be, you know, replaced by anything. No matter how great your mother was, she could be the best mother in the world, but she can never feel the shoes of a father. Just like a father can never feel the shoes of a mother. So, you know, some of you look at young boys that have not grown up without a father. Look at yourself if you have never grown up without a father. How much of that did you need? And how much of that has impacted you today? Some of the people, we call it pathology in psychology. Pathology is basically, you know, a repetitive pattern, generation after generation, where if your father left your mother, you will leave the mother of your kids as well. The very thing that you hated The very thing that you hated is the very thing that you become as a man and as a father. That's just psychology.
Yo, I believe we can do this the whole day. But in spite of everything and looking back at everything that you have been through, the experiences that you have gained, the knowledge that you have acquired through reading and stuff like that, and if you were to advise your younger self, then what would you advise your younger self?
Sure. There's a lot I could advise my younger self, but I think the main thing for me would be, young man, relax. It's gonna be fine. Because I've found that life as it unfolds for me, the things that I worried about, the things that I stressed about, the things that kept me up at night, there was no reason to, because life is unfolding in such a way that it's showing me that it's within my favor. Sometimes, even when you go through the worst moments of your life, the worst moments of your life are not there to victimize you. You must always remember that you're not a victim of anything, but every situation is basically an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to know more about yourself. Spirituality says that you have invited every situation so that it becomes an opportunity for you to grow and to know yourself as who you really are. And sometimes even when you grow within a bad situation, even that is there to grow you to the better version of yourself. So relax, young man. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I know, to be honest with you, I think on behalf of the Tell Someone crew, I really need to just appreciate your presence on the show. You have done justice to this episode. You were not taking any prisoners. You were moving, and for that we thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing me here, and I would be expecting a check for my presence.
Definitely.
When it grows and surpasses, what you call this guy, McG's and whatnot, you know, I'm expecting. This is on record, by the way. I'm expecting a check from you. But yeah, I mean, on a serious note, thank you so much for having me here. What you don't realize is that you by being here, you know, you have assisted my purpose on the planet, and you have become part of my purpose on the planet.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, I'll see you guys on social media.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our show.
Oh wait. Guys, Tuesday, 8 o'clock on Twitter. Yes, my handle is @Rendani_RENZOE. That's my. Oh, you don't want me to flourish in life. You don't even tell this.
No, I was, you know what? When we were sharing it, I was going to be writing. If you want this man, this is where you'll find him. We're just going to put that thing on the screen on socials, because this topic needs to be taken out there. People need your services, honestly speaking. So, yeah, we will get you in touch with this man. Do not worry. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ramagoma Rendani, and I am closing Tell Someone episode today. Thank you very much.